The pen felt heavier than it should have. I stood in the bank lobby, my thumb pressed so hard against the barrel of the ballpoint that the plastic left a groove in my skin. Across the desk, the branch manager wouldn't meet my eyes. She kept sliding papers toward me, then pulling them back, like she was the one committing a crime. "Mrs. Whitfield," she said, voice dropped to a near whisper. "I need you to understand. This authorization was already used. 3 days ago." My hand didn't move. Somewhere behind me, a phone buzzed once in my coat pocket. I didn't check it. "Used for what?" I said. Not a question. A demand dressed as calm. She finally looked up. "For a wedding deposit. $240,000. I hadn't approved anything. "My name is Diane Whitfield. I'm 63 years old, and for 31 years I ran a small chain of dry cleaning businesses in the suburbs of Columbus, Ohio. 4 locations, 11 employees, and a reputation for never missing a promised pickup date. Not once. Not even the winter my husband Richard had his first heart surgery. I built that business from a single storefront with a busted steam press and a loan I paid off in 6 years instead of the 15 the bank predicted. By the time I sold the chain in 2019, it was worth $1.4 million. I didn't spend it. I invested most of it, kept a comfortable cushion, and put the rest into paying off our house outright. A modest 4-bedroom colonial on Larkspur Lane that Richard and I bought in 1994 for $187,000 and finished paying, free and clear, the year our son Marcus turned 28. Marcus was our only child. Smart, charming, the kind of young man who could talk his way into a boardroom and out of a speeding ticket in the same afternoon. I loved him with the particular, aching love you save for someone you watch take his first steps in your own kitchen. 2 years ago, Richard passed. Congestive heart failure, quiet, in his sleep, the way he always said he wanted to go. After that, I gave Marcus power of attorney over my accounts, just in case, I told him, just in case my mind ever goes the way your grandmother's did. I trusted him with $890,000 in liquid savings and a house worth $410,000 on the current market. I trusted him. That was my only real mistake. It was a Tuesday in March when I dropped by his apartment unannounced, a container of his favorite chicken and dumplings still warm in my hands, and found the door propped open with a shoe. Inside, 6 people I didn't recognize were drinking champagne out of my mother's crystal flutes. Flutes I kept in a locked hutch at my house. Flutes that had survived 2 moves and a house fire in 1988 without a single chip. A woman in a cream silk dress, engagement ring flashing under the kitchen light, was holding one up to the window. "It's insane he just handed this all over," she said, laughing. "My parents wouldn't give us $500 without a spreadsheet." Marcus, sprawled on the couch with a whiskey in hand, grinned. "That's the beauty of power of attorney, baby. She doesn't even know what she signed." I stood in the hallway, container growing cold in my hands, and I did not go in. I told Marcus I'd left my reading glasses at his place and asked to come by while he was at work. His fiancée, Brooke, I'd learned her name was Brooke, let me in without suspicion. On the kitchen counter, next to a stack of wedding invitations printed on ivory cardstock, sat a folder labeled vendor contracts. Inside, a $58,000 deposit to a venue called the Ashcombe Estate, a $31,000 catering invoice, a $22,000 photography and videography package, all dated within the last 5 weeks. All paid from an account with my name on it. I photographed every page with my phone, tucked between the pages of a paperback so it looked like I was reading. I called my accountant, a soft-spoken man named Harold who'd done my books since 1997, and asked him, casually, over coffee, to pull a full transaction history on the joint account. What came back stopped my hand mid-sip. In 4 months, Marcus had authorized 11 wire transfers totaling $612,000. $240,000 of it, the bank teller's number, had gone out in a single transaction the week before my visit. I confronted him, gently, the way a mother does when she still wants to believe there's an explanation. We sat in my kitchen, and I asked him, plainly, what the withdrawals were for. He didn't flinch. "Mom, it's called liquidity restructuring. Brooke's dad is a financial advisor, and he helped me set up a trust vehicle to protect your assets from estate tax exposure. It's actually saving you money long-term. You'll thank me when you see the numbers." I nodded slowly. "That sounds very smart, sweetheart. I said. I don't understand half of it, but I trust you. He smiled like a man who'd just closed a deal. I didn't trust him. I drove 40 minutes to a title company Marcus had never heard me mention, on a hunch, because Harold had noticed a $6,500 payment to something called Belmore Title and Escrow buried in the transaction log. The clerk, thinking I was there for routine business, printed me a copy of a closing disclosure. My house. My paid-off, mortgage-free house at 214 Larkspur Lane. Under contract. Sale price, $398,000. Closing date, 6 weeks out. Seller of record, Marcus T. Whitfield, attorney-in-fact for Diane R. Whitfield. He was selling the roof over my head to fund a wedding I hadn't been fully invited to plan. That night, I sat in my car outside his apartment building longer than I should have, and through the gap in his blinds I watched Brooke twirl in a wedding dress while Marcus filmed her on his phone. I heard her voice, muffled through glass but clear enough. Once the house sale closes, we'll have enough left over for the Tuscany honeymoon and the down payment on our place. She'll never even notice the shortfall. She barely checks her own statements. Marcus laughed. She trusts me completely. It's honestly kind of sad. I put the car in drive and went home to my house. My house. For 6 more weeks, at least. I made a decision that night, sitting alone at my kitchen table with a cup of chamomile tea gone cold in front of me. I decided to become smaller. The next time I saw Marcus, I let my shoulders round forward. I let my hands tremble slightly when I reached for my coffee cup. Not enough to be alarming, just enough to be noticed. I started repeating myself in conversation, asking the same question about the wedding date twice within 10 minutes. I bought a cane I didn't need and left it leaning conspicuously by my front door. "Are you feeling all right, Mom?" Marcus asked once, genuine concern flickering across his face for just a moment. "Just tired, honey," I said, patting his hand. Getting old is strange. I forget things now. Inside, I was sharper than I'd been in a decade. I understood something about people like Marcus and Brooke. They weren't cautious with a woman they respected as competent. They were reckless with a woman they'd already decided was fading. So I gave them exactly the woman they wanted to see, soft, forgetful, grateful for whatever scraps of attention they offered, because a predator that believes its prey is helpless stops watching for teeth. I set 3 things in motion. First, I visited a different attorney, not Marcus's contact, not anyone in his orbit, but a woman named Patricia Kemelu, 40 minutes across town, who specialized in elder financial abuse. I signed a formal revocation of power of attorney and had it notarized on the spot. Patricia held it, sealed, ready to file the moment I gave the word. Second, I asked Harold to freeze any further transactions on the joint accounts pending a routine audit, a request the bank could process quietly without alerting Marcus. Third, and this was the bait, I told Marcus, over dinner, that I was thinking of simplifying things and wanted to sign the house over to him outright as an early wedding gift, so there's no confusion later. I asked him to bring the paperwork to a family dinner the following Saturday, when Brooke's parents would also be visiting, so we could celebrate together. I set a small recorder, no larger than a matchbook, inside a decorative candle holder on the dining room's china cabinet. I told Marcus I'd invited Patricia too, an old friend from my quilting group. I said, "She does witness work for signings sometimes." That Saturday, my phone sat face down in my lap under the tablecloth, a live transcription app running silently, vibrating faintly with each new line of text it captured. Patricia sat 2 seats down from me, a folder in her purse that Marcus believed contained nothing more than a fruit tart recipe. Dinner started pleasantly enough. Brooke's parents, Karen and Doug, were warm in the practiced way of people used to being liked. Marcus poured wine generously, laughing too loud, clearly savoring what he believed was the final signature standing between him and full control. "So Diane," Karen said, swirling her glass, "Marcus tells us you're gifting the kids the house outright. That's just so generous. Honestly, at your age, what do you need all that space for?" Brooke laughed. "Night? She could get one of those little senior apartments. Very low maintenance." I smiled, folding my hands. It has been a lot to manage alone. Marcus slid the folder across the table. "I already had the deed transfer drawn up, Mom. Just needs your signature right here." He tapped the page with 2 fingers, The same easy confidence I'd once been proud of. I picked up the pen. I let my hand hover, let it tremble, let the room hold its breath. Then I set the pen down. Before I sign anything, I said, voice even, unhurried, I'd like to ask you something, Marcus. What happened to the $612,000 you withdrew from my accounts over the last 4 months? The table went still. Marcus's smile didn't fully drop. It just froze, a photograph of itself. Mom, we've been over this. Liquidity restructuring. Trust vehicles. You wouldn't. I called the trust company you claimed set it up. I said, cutting in, gentle as ever. It doesn't exist. No such entity is registered in Ohio or Delaware. Brooke's father, Doug, shifted in his seat. Marcus, what is she talking about? I also spoke with Belmore Title and Escrow. I continued. Who confirmed you initiated the sale of my house, my paid-off house, Marcus, for $398,000, without my knowledge, using a power of attorney I granted you to protect me, not to erase me. You don't understand the paperwork, Marcus said, and his voice had climbed half an octave. You've never understood the paperwork. I understand it perfectly now, I said. I have the wire transfer records. I have the closing disclosure. And I have a recording, made in this room 20 minutes ago, of you telling Doug the house sale would clear enough for the honeymoon and the down payment before I'd even signed anything. Because you never intended to wait for my signature at all, did you? Silence. Brooke's face had gone the color of the tablecloth. I reached into my cardigan pocket and set my phone on the table, screen up, the transcript still scrolling. I revoked your power of attorney 9 days ago, I said. Notarized, filed, and delivered to every financial institution holding my accounts. I nodded toward Patricia. This is Patricia in Kemalu. She's not from my quilting group. She's my attorney, and she's been documenting elder financial exploitation cases for 11 years. Patricia opened her folder and set it beside my phone, calm as Sunday. Marcus stood so fast his chair scraped the floor. This is insane. This is my house. You said. It's still my house, I said, and finally, only slightly, I raised my voice, not in anger, but in finality. It has been my house for 32 years, and it will remain my house. I picked up the deed transfer he'd handed me, the one meant to sign away the last thing he hadn't already stolen, and tore it once, cleanly, down the middle. The sound of it seemed to fill the whole room. Doug's phone was already at his ear. Yes, I need to report a possible fraud situation, he said, stepping into the hallway, his own daughter's engagement suddenly irrelevant next to his own legal exposure as a witness. 2 officers arrived within the hour, called not by me, but by Patricia, who had quietly phoned the Franklin County Financial Crimes Unit the moment dinner began, per our plan. Within 3 weeks, the consequences arrived in a steady, documented cascade. The Franklin County Prosecutor's Office charged Marcus with felony theft from an elder and misuse of power of attorney, both charges carrying mandatory restitution under Ohio law. Facing 4 to 8 years, he accepted a plea deal, full restitution of $612,000, 5 years of probation, and a permanent record that would follow every background check for the rest of his professional life. Belmore Title and Escrow voided the house sale before closing, citing fraudulent authorization. The buyers, a young couple who'd sold their own starter home to afford it, received their earnest money back in full and, at my insistence, a personal apology and a $2,000 goodwill payment from me for the disruption. They'd done nothing wrong, and I made sure they knew it. The Ashcombe estate refunded $41,000 of the $58,000 deposit after Patricia's office intervened. The remainder was written off as a loss, a debt now legally Marcus's alone. Brooke ended the engagement 9 days after the dinner. Karen and Doug sent a brief, awkward card apologizing for any embarrassment, which I did not respond to, because their embarrassment was never my concern. To my former dry cleaning employees, several of whom Marcus had, in his confidence, promised consulting roles at a business that never existed, dangling false job offers to make himself look successful. I personally called each one, explained the truth, and where I could, made introductions to legitimate positions through contacts I still had in the Columbus business community. 3 of them found work within the month. That mattered more to me than any of Marcus's punishment. It rained the night he came back. 6 weeks after the dinner, past 11, headlights swept across my living room curtains, and I heard a car door, then footsteps, then a knock. Not the confident double rap I remembered from his childhood, but something smaller, uncertain. I opened the door to find him standing on the porch, soaked through, an overnight bag slung over one shoulder. His apartment lease apparently lapsed, his savings gone to legal fees and restitution. "Mom," he said, and his voice cracked in a way I hadn't heard since he was 9 years old, and broke his arm falling off the garage roof. "I have nowhere to go. Please, just for a few nights." I looked at him for a long moment. The rain kept falling between us. "You had everything, Marcus," I said, calm, steady, no tremor in my voice at all now. "I didn't need the performance anymore. A mother who trusted you with everything she built. And you decided that wasn't enough unless you took the rest by force. I forgive you. I don't hate you. But forgiveness doesn't mean a key to this house." "Mom, there's a shelter on 5th Street that takes walk-ins after 10, I said. I called ahead. "They're expecting you." I closed the door, gently, the way you close a door on a chapter rather than slam it on a person. Inside, Richard's old recliner sat empty by the window, and I sat down across from it anyway, out of habit, and spoke to the quiet the way I sometimes still did. "We did all right, Richard," I said. "The house is still ours." Outside, the rain kept coming down, and for the first time in over a year, I slept without checking my phone once in the night. Love your children with everything you have. But never confuse love with blind access, because the people who count on you not checking are usually the ones who need checking on the most. Protect what you built. Protect yourself. Nobody else is obligated to. If someone in your life ever made you feel small enough to steal from, tell me in the comments. What would you have done differently at that dinner table? If this story hit home, hit like, subscribe for more, and I'll see you in the next one.